would these be good books to build the foundation of social skills upon plus experience? Specifically speaking, social skills, not game. Yes, it would. Because
it would.
a lot of here's the thing. And I didn't realize this until I started like meeting some of you guys in person that come up to me and say what's up or whatever. A lot of guys have strange body language and mannerisms. I mean, you could speak about that as well, Mike, and I'll turn it to you here in a second to talk about that. A lot of guys lack social calibration through their body language, and they come off as extremely weird, shy, timid, awkward. And the problem is this. Me meeting you as a guy, I understand it. I've been there. Yeah. I'm not going to fucking look at you differently for it and be like, oh, this guy's a fucking weirdo, blah, blah, blah. I understand that certain guys, especially guys that are brilliant, tend to have these weird tics. I get it, right? But women are not going to give you the same benefit that Myron Gaines is, okay? They're going to look at that and be like, oh, what the fuck? This nigga's a serial killer. I'll turn it to you.
And their sensitivity to it is way higher than yours, too.
Yes, I might catch it in 3-4 seconds talking to you. They'll catch it within 1 second.
It's the ick, right? So for us, one of the things we do that's a little different, we do a Monday show, Rollo comes on sometimes, and we have the guys, instead of doing super chats, they have to come on camera, and we'll stop the whole show and be like, bro, because they're shaking the camera, and when we talk about interviews, I teach guys how to do interviews as well. A lot of these interviews are done over Zoom, and I'm like, you're gonna face the light, okay? This camera's gonna be still. I want you to maintain eye contact with the camera. I want to be able to hear spaces in between the words that you say. Watching yourself on camera, I know it comes off as a little vain, but you'd be shocked how many times there's these weird tics that you have that you don't notice. You're thinking about something and you squint your eyes like this, and it's just these things that like really don't make it seem like you're in control. Now, like what he said, I have so many clients that I'm used to seeing men like this, and so I'm going to give you a break. But in this instance, this is such a great, being able to watch yourself on camera and critique yourself and then consistently get better. You two do it, whether or not you know you do it. You watch yourself on stream all the time.
Especially in the beginning, I did it. I did it to like, in the beginning a lot to like make sure like, oh, okay, this is weird. I should stop doing that, blah, blah, blah. Like I caught bad habits very quickly, but some of you guys might not have that benefit to watch yourself back. So it's definitely, that's a fantastic way to do it.
Yeah, so we'll do streams, or some of my clients will actually do stream like with each other. They'll just have in like groups, and they'll almost like Toastmasters. It's one of these things where like actually being able to talk well on camera is a great way, a cheat code to be. It's almost like the current Toastmasters to be able to do it now. And it's just so incredibly important to do that. A lot of like the head moving and like the voice breaks upward. So like the tonality breaks upward where you sound like you're seeking rapport instead of breaking rapport. Those kind of things you can learn over time. The verbal pauses, the the ah, the you know what I mean, you know what I'm saying, like that kind of stuff. Yeah. If you can get away from that and then speak and then have the direct pauses in between your words, you'll notice that people are more likely to listen to you.
It's true.
Yeah. I had a bad habit of saying, you know what I'm saying, a lot.
Yeah.
That was one of the first things. If you guys watch the old videos, that was one thing that I got rid of immediately. I was like, whoa, this is fucking stupid.
Mine was, for example. It said a lot. That being said, for example, what else?
One other thing that's really big. Do you remember the Joe Rogan thing where they were talking to a mugger, a guy who'd been convicted of mugging, and they showed him photographs of individuals and like which one would you mug and which one would you not mug? And it was one of these things where like the knees were locked out, the feet were pointed like this, and sort of like the wobbly duck walk that you find with a lot of people. When guys see that, they realize this person can't chase me if I steal something from them. And it's really interesting as men, you're constantly being judged on like your upper and lower body athleticism. And this is something that like women don't necessarily, if women are clumsy and they're hot, we don't really care. But when men are like that, you're always being judged on the way you walk. Does it look athletic? When you talk, does your voice break when you're around someone you think is higher status? Does it go up like this? When you talk to women, does it go up like this? When you're trying to seek rapport from them? Or when you talk to the most beautiful woman you've ever seen, or your brother, does your voice sound exactly the same? If it does, that means you're not affected by it, which is an attribute of a high status person.
I mean, even in the bedroom, you need that dominant like talk as well, right, Sterling?
What are you talking about?
Like
the radio voice? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, you need that smooth voice, man.
I need your porn star
before you lead
music to go behind all this.
What?
I need tap.
Do you have a Pornhub button on there?
I do actually.
I gotta send it to Mo.
Oh yeah.
ASMR.
I have a bunch of random sound effects. But I will say this. I think one of the most underrated things that guys should master is tonality.
Yes.
One of the biggest things I tell guys all the time, especially on consults, and I'm able to detect it immediately from the way that they speak to me. I'm like, you speak in the passive voice, you need to stop doing that. You need to start speaking more in the active voice. You need to start almost, especially when you talk to women. Women respond very favorably to this. You need to tell them versus asking them.
Yes.
You need to speak from a more authority standpoint where it's like, all right, we're going to do this. Hey, let's do this, blah, blah, blah. Versus like trying to get her permission or what she thinks or whatever. And the reality is most girls, if you say it in a convincing manner, they're gonna follow along, even if they might not necessarily agree with it all the way.
And it's amazing when you just sound like you know what you're doing, how they just follow along.
Questions put it in her frame. That's why.
Yeah,
I recommend
absolutely.
Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belfort. Chapter 7 goes over these 10 tonalities that he uses. One of them is called absolute certainty. That is the one salespeople use and the one often you can use with women.
I mean, if you ask girls what they're doing right now, they say, "Oh, I'm just going with the flow." So if you can lead the flow, you win.
Yeah.
They
That's
like
very
to be
true.
asked
They
questions.
prefer,
They want-
they prefer to go with the flow.
Yeah.
Also,
So, but yeah, guys, I mean, the tonality, that's a big one. And, Mystery talked about this, like,
I talked to Mystery yesterday. Funny
Oh,
enough.
really?
I did
Yeah,
talk to
we're
Eric
trying to get him
yesterday.
out.
okay.
Isn't he kind of quirky too?
He's quirky, but the thing is, Mystery is like he could memorize these stacks of routines, and he could do them flawlessly like an actor. It was so crazy to watch him do it, and it worked really well. Social media made it a little difficult to do what he was doing back there in the early aughts, but it was really crazy to watch. He definitely I've seen a lot of PUAs. Most of them are not nearly as good as they say they are. He definitely was
Good.
Yeah, and for the audience, real quick, because that's a PUA term, stacking routines, etc. Guys, a stacking routine is nothing more than having a an opener and a story. A lot of times, it's a demonstration of higher value story, a DHV story. He's able to tell these stories right in a way that displays higher value, right? So we know that women like confidence, ambition, protector of loved ones. Being funny,
leader
all these
of men,
different leader
protector
of
of
men.
one one's what's it? Willingness to walk away, willingness to emote, and I forgot what the last one was. But there was just like he had these 5 attraction triggers.
Yeah.
Those were the first ones. But then we got into
But
pre-selection.
the story he tells
Yes.
always subtly demonstrates each of these traits
I'm
that he's
glad you
talking
brought
about.
that up because it's storytelling is a skill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's a very good.
He's able to tell. Yes, he's
stories.
able to tell the story in a way to keep the women engaged.
Right.
There's a cliffhanger in it, etc.
Yeah.
And like you said before, back in early 2000s, it was fantastic because
there
this
was
was
no
an
social
underground
media.
niche thing. There was no social media. If you didn't read the books, you didn't know what the fuck they were talking about.
so
But nowadays, and I think kind of they kind of hurt themselves doing this. The show, The Pickup Artist, even though it exploded, right, with popularity and helping guys find this stuff, myself included, it also hurt because now women became privy to this underground community.
Cosmo, who won the first season of the Pickup Artist, he just called me last night too. He's here teaching a boot camp.
Wow. It's funny. I had a friend in Barbados, right? Really good with the ladies player. But he would tell stories to girls, and I'm like, bro, I know you. That's fucking lie. But it worked because he's telling them a story just to show
they're
high value.
entertained. They're locked in.
But it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. That happened for real. I'm like, this nigga lying his ass off, but it's working.
Yeah.
What the fuck's going on?
Yeah, and the key is and it's a very delicate balance, guys. Going in there and be like, yes, I was in my Lamborghini, and then I went ahead to a fucking Gucci store.
That's not how you front loading.
That's
No
not how you do
front
it.
loading.
It's got to be a very
subtle flex.
subtle flex where you're kind of flexing a little bit, but it's like almost the story is too good for her to notice that shit.
Yeah.
It's like
It's
after
not
the fact
It's
thing.
not a brag.
Yeah.
It's
It's
the
a humble
actual
brag,
story
or yeah.
that's going somewhere to show that you're a man.
Yeah.
You're actually a leader.
So so many guys fuck that up because they tell stories and they're so focused on like a detail that will DHV, and she'll pick up on that shit that you're like trying to lead that way. So it's a skill set, man, to be able to tell a story and be able to DHV while doing the story and keeping the girl engaged. And the thing with Mystery that I'll give him credit for is he would do this shit with like 5-7 girls around him.
Yes.
And he would do that. He'd open up a set. He'd tell this story, etc. He'd be, once you get really advanced, you're able to do this shit. He'd net girls that he liked, and then while simultaneously building a rapport with annoying friends and / cock blocks. And it was that's why Pickup is so great because it teaches you so many different things about human psychology, and it also just makes you a better communicator, better orator, better storyteller. It just makes you a more sharp individual socially regardless, because if you're able to sit there and deal with 7 fucking bimbos, right, and be able to keep them all entertained, etc.
Women.
Bimbos. Right? What ends up happening is you go to a boardroom meeting, fucking easy mode.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, I need to get funding. I remember when I would do my my presentations for my cases, right? All right, I won't go into the weeds and put people to sleep, but I would go a lot of the times because complex investigations are very expensive.
Yeah.
You need funding. So I would go ahead to the Department of Justice and present my case. Hey, I need to make this case an OCDF case, Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force, because XYZ. And I'd go through each bullet point as to, the importance of each target, what they're doing, the type of crimes they're committing, what they're capable of. This is drug trafficking, the amount of drugs that they're moving per week, etc. And you have to do it in a convincing manner. You got to speak in an active voice. It's not like, I think he's doing this. It's like, it's estimated that XYZ is moving this many kilograms, and we know this through XYZ source, blah, 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 etc. I just debriefed them 2 days ago, so the information is recent. I need this funding, blah, blah, blah. And bam, from that skill set of, talking to girls and opening a set and not being nervous, I was easily able to go in there and talk to, 50 agents that are in there, right? Higher ups, by the way, because I'm trying to get funding from FBI, DEA, et cetera, because it's a whole government thing, OCDF. You guys can look it up, OCDF program. And you're getting this funding from DOJ. So you need to be able to speak in a convincing manner and know what the fuck you're talking about. And then on top of that, you need to be able to answer their questions. Oh, well, explain to me, blah, 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 about the target. Oh, yeah, we know this, XYZ. So it made it easier. It's funny. Pickup made it easier for me to speak with, high-ranking officials in the U.S. government.
Yeah. People get a really bad impression of Pickup nowadays. Like the era you're talking about.
Yeah.
Now people for some reason have this misconception that it was all about like, oh, neg this, neg that.
all
and that's
routines,
because of
it's all
the
rote memorization.
That's because of these
one of the issues,
MTV shows, the reality shows, all that. They gloss over all the stuff you just talked about.
Yeah.
Where it's like it's taken a dude who's literally autistic.
Yeah.
Literally, I've seen it with my own eyes. Like he's super autistic. And now he's actually a regular, normal guy.
Yeah.
And the only way to get a guy to that point is to kind of baby step him through a normal social interaction and teach him all these little micro expressions and micro adjustments in his body language and reading body language.
I would
and
argue
repetition again and again.
most socially awkward people, if they did what you did, you take your guys out in Vegas to talk to girls in person.
Immersion.
Will solve a lot of their
Yeah.
problems.
It's immersion because it's harder. Like the reason why we do what we do in my program is because it's more stimulants. It's really, if you can bench press 300 pounds, you can bench press 200 pounds. So when you do the meetup for all the real estate agents in your city, you just dealt with a bunch of girls. Like it's so much fucking easier to deal with this. To your point about the pickup artists, one of the issues was when a lot of the guys had approach anxiety, and so what they did was they refused rejection instead of accepting rejection. And this is where guys got very weird and started freaking girls out, and that's where it got a lot of, like if you'll see in Canada, they'll literally have signs inside of malls. They'll do this we'll basically say no pickup allowed here. If you we'll arrest you or we'll kick you off the property. What happened was
There's one mall in Toronto that's big for that.
Yeah, for sure. So what would happen is what happens is when you get a rejection from a girl or a girl gives you feedback, you can't reframe everything. Sometimes you did do something wrong and you need to learn from what you're doing. And a lot of pickup guys didn't do that. They just basically said everything she said is wrong. And you would see guys laying out in the middle of the street or going 60 days without taking a shower or just really weird stuff like that. And they did so because they wanted to prove that they would just not accept rejection. Rejection, though, is there for a reason.
Yeah.
To some
It's
extent.
feedback.
Yeah. Not having an emotional reaction to rejection is fine, but you need to take it as feedback. And that split that happened in a lot of guys who have autism, they weren't able to see that difference. That's where the problem started becoming. So you'd have 15% of guys who would have outrageous success from it, but a good number of guys just didn't know how to do that. They wouldn't take action, or they did not have the ability to see the nuance in what they were doing. And so every rejection was like reframe, pimp game, reframe. She just told me she doesn't like me because she wants my dick. Like everything was a reframe. And it's like, no, except your breath actually does stink. Like you need to take the feedback, and because they didn't do it, that was one of the problems. That's why there was a point where I was still hanging out with Mystery and Neil Strauss and those guys, but then I started hanging out with these club promoters who would just like run through 70, 80 girls, and I was like, okay, what's different here? And then I started noticing that they would take the feedback, and it was just like the main thing I noticed is they could be around a lot of women without acting feminine. They were still the leader, and that was like the main thing that I saw that they did that was really, really great.
Yeah. Yeah, being a club promoter is like easy mode, because it automatically does. It's like retard proof, because what it does is it puts a lot of the things. It puts you in the driver's seat, and a lot of things that you need to already have makes you a leader of men. Yeah. It shows that you're decisive to a degree. You're bringing in them the fun, so they automatically connotate like you with fun, which boom, that's a good thing right there. Safety, because you're able to protect them from weirdos, etc. Especially when you display these things actively in the club. Other women see you and like you, because if you're a good promoter, you're typically going to have 5 to 10 girls that are like always around you, etc. So it does a lot of the work for you just from being in that profession.
And there's one other thing. When you start approaching women, now you don't associate whatever she says with rejection, because you're giving her an offer. Right. Does that make sense? The offer is, do you want to come to have fun with us? Oh, you don't want to come? It's not a personal rejection. And so you'll see guys who are club promoters, they'll do thousands of approaches, and the approach anxiety is completely gone after a while.
Rejection is better than better than regret.
Best book I've ever read on this is called Very Important People by Professor Ashley Mears from Boston University. She has her interpretation is incorrect, I think, but her description is the best I've ever seen. She even talks about Jason Strauss, the owner of Tal Hakkasan Group. She talks about him. There's 3 case studies, Harvard case studies on Jason Strauss. it's really incredible stuff when you see like how much money these guys were able to make just understanding the concept of being able to get girls to come to different events.
Like when I was writing the 5th